Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Shoot Your Shot Photography Show. Welcome back. My name is Ben Jacobson. I'll be your host today. And if this is your first time joining us for Shoot Your Shot, welcome. We enjoy and appreciate that you're here. Today, we actually have a very special guest joining us from Spain, actually. Yago Ruiz is going to be here talking with us about street photography, photographing different cultures from around the world, and just kind of a little bit of background about him. He's a fantastic artist, and we're going to learn a little bit more about what he does today and kind of how things kind of come together for him as he's building these bodies of work. So we're super excited about that. Again, with this being one of our, today is our sixth, I think today's the sixth episode, so we're super excited to be continuing this. You guys are such a huge part of this, the audience. So if you can do me a huge favor, if you haven't already, please subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. It helps me continue to do these shows and lets me know that it's something that you guys are interested in. So thank you guys again so much for your continued support, and we really appreciate it. If you guys are catching this afterwards and you're not able to catch the live stream, that's totally great. We're going to be recording this and having it up online for you as well later on, so definitely look out for that. And we encourage you guys to ask questions. If you have some questions about what we're talking about or you'd like to interact, we definitely encourage that too. So I'll do my best to kind of keep an eye on the comments as they come in. I'm running a little bit light today. I'm a one-man show, but we're going to make it work and we're going to make it awesome. So without any further ado, I want to introduce my friend and fellow photographer, Yago Ruiz. He is a street photographer, as I mentioned. He is actually currently based out of Spain right now, and also based out of London. So, Yago, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Ben, for the opportunity of being here with you and with this interview. I'm really excited to speak here with you and to talk about my work and travels I have been doing the past years and so on. So I have to say I'm in Spain now because I have had a baby a month and a half ago, and this is why I'm in Spain, but I'm currently based in London.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
For the past 3 years and a half. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Awesome. So you're based out of London and you're in Spain right now. And you said you've been in Spain for how long?
For 2 months now.
For 2 months.
2 months. I came in February, to have the baby, but I have been in London for the past 3 years and a half.
Nice. And where were you at before that?
Sorry?
Where were you at before London?
Before London, I was in Spain to get married.
Nice.
And before that, I was living in Ethiopia for a year as well. In 2015 to 2016, I was living in Ethiopia. So the past 5 years, I've been for outside of Spain, 3.5 in London and 1 in Ethiopia. Yeah.
Awesome. So that kind of helps draw a little bit more the picture of kind of your work. I mean, you have some incredible work from, there's a big majority of it that is in London as well as, Ethiopia, and you've traveled quite a few different places. How do you kind of find yourself in some of these different environments that allow you to get such impactful photographs?
The point is, I really love traveling. I started traveling before taking pictures, many years before. I started traveling with my mother mainly because she loves traveling, and I went with her. And at some point in India, in 2008, I found there it was the place to start taking pictures because the travel there was very impressive for me. The poverty, the situation there, it's very strong. And I thought at that moment, man, I have to take pictures. I have to document this situation somehow, and photography was probably the easiest way, because I don't know how to write or write properly, in a proper way. And speaking, of course, is not my way, or doing other things. So photography was like the easiest way to start doing this. So this is like my starting point in photography.
So you said that it kind of started because of your love of travel. what brought you to India? What was were you just visiting for like a vacation, or was it?
Yeah. Basically, tourism. We were there 3 weeks, and and that's it. But it was my first travel outside Europe, and there was the place where I understood that the world is different than Europe or the Western countries, because if you travel along Europe or in the United States probably, or Western countries, you understand most of the things are more or less the same, But outside in outside Europe, Africa and Asia and Latin America and so on is quite different, and really strong situations, very different than Western countries,
Agreed.
So
yeah, I mean, I definitely have noticed. I feel like when I travel, there's always some sort of desire to find something that is different. Like I think for me, traveling is not necessarily my key motivator in traveling is not like for relaxation and for like unwinding. Like for me, like when I travel and when I go, especially out of the country, like I want to find something that changes my view. It changes literally like what I see. So I'm seeing new cultures that I'm not used to, new customs, new ways of living, and being able to do that inside of a different country, I entirely understand how it can be, a catalyst to make you want to become a photographer or make you wanting to take pictures, because seeing something so different, like you almost want to just like take that back with you, and photography seems like a really good avenue in order to do that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, usually people start taking pictures because they want to remember, right? It's the first purpose of photography, just taking pictures to remember where you have been before or in previous years, or remember your family or whatever, But if you go in deep little by little in photography, at some point you understand that it's also a language. It's a way of speaking to others, to show how they live. For example, when I was in Ethiopia I have been three different times. In 2013, I was for 4 months as a volunteer. In 2015 to 2016 for 9 months, and also in 2017 I was just a couple of weeks. But my purpose taking pictures in Ethiopia was just to show the way of living there, not the classic very exotic images, which is usually what people see. If you check my website, we will go through it later, you will see that this is daily life. This is how they live, and it's not these exotic pictures as I'm saying, and this is what I try to do when I'm traveling around different countries, just to show not only the classic pictures, which are okay, I mean, you can take them, it's not a problem, but also specific situations or scenarios or places or way of living of the people,
Yeah, and I think that might even be one of the things that drew me to your work. I found you through Instagram, and as soon as I saw it, like that was something that stood out to me so much, is just your ability to show what normal life looks like for a lot of these people. And I think that is what's interesting about it, is because it's not necessarily the exotic setup shots where it's, I think we all kind of like have seen a handful of those where it's like, it's a tourist type photo almost. You're trying to create or make a scene be more exotic than it is, rather than just showing directly what's happening. And a lot of your photographs, I think, represent like the more realistic side of a lot of these folks, their daily life. I mean, even there's a specific shot I'm thinking of that is of the Taj Mahal, and it's not the most iconic shot. Like there's always like the iconic shot of it straight on, and
with the reflection,
everything looks great, and the water is perfectly pristine. And I mean, I think actually I have it here. Let me see if I can pull it up. I'm using new software, so bear with me a little bit. But I think I can pull it up on this screen over here, but there's just something that's really cool about it that um, it's not showing like the glamour. It's not showing like the reflecting pools, and it's not showing like the most exact thing. But what it is showing is in the bottom of the scene here, you see people carrying their goods, and they're going to and from their house or wherever it is. But what they're doing is they're living their lives in an
Exactly.
iconic photograph scene. Like it's a scene that is photographed millions of times, maybe billions. And because of that, like these people they're just living their life. They don't know any different. They're going through and they know that it's of course an iconic building, but that in that photograph to me it stood out as, oh, these people are just doing daily life. And that was something that was really impactful to me.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, one of the purposes when I'm traveling is just to try to shot pictures in these iconic places, but trying to find a different point of view. This is something that I mean, of course, it's not mine, because you learn from others, and this is something I learned from Steve McCurry. You check his body of work, you see these iconic places, really impressive places, and the pictures are different, because there is always a person somewhere, and the point of view is a different one. In fact, this picture you have shown is when I was there in Agra, visiting the Taj Mahal. We spent there like a couple of days or three, and of course you go and you spend 3, 4, 5, 6 hours visiting the gardens and inside the place and so on, which is the classic picture, with the water and the reflection and so on. But if you look for other points of view, you have to walk, you have to take a budget, which is these small motorcycles.
Mm-hmm.
You have to move around and just invest time, because I consider it's investing time, not spending, it's investing time to look for these different pictures, let's say different. So it's street photography because it's daily life, in the streets. And these are the streets of India, of course, for example, this picture. But the scenarios are really impressive, they are not the usual ones. It's not your street outside in your neighborhood, it's in these places.
Agreed. Yeah. And that's actually, I'm glad that you said that, the idea of investing your time to look for different angles, because it's something that has become a personal mantra of mine in the last month. I've gotten to a point to where, I mean, we're now almost May of 2021, so we're coming where we're at here in the United States. We're sort of kind of coming out of lockdown a little bit at a time, but I haven't been able to photograph very consistently in a very long time, and so like I'm trying to get my pacing back and get everything back. But one of the mantras I have is don't take the obvious shot. Like always look for a different shot. Take your first one, but don't settle for that one. Like look for something else that's going to be different than what the obvious shot is. And so I'm glad that you did that. And I think that this photograph that we were just speaking about in India, I think it just perfectly describes that kind of feeling of, look for something a little bit different. Don't just try to make it specifically, what you're going to get the most likes on Instagram for, or what's the most iconic, but what's going to tell the best story. And I feel like that image right there specifically shows such a great story.
Yeah. And another purpose, just speaking about this, one of the other purposes I have when shooting in the streets is just because I mean, it's very easy to shoot let's say the street photography you can see now on Instagram and the social networks is always the same, it's just geometry, shadows, and contrast, and these kind of things, which are mainly aesthetics. But when I try to shoot, it's not only looking for the aesthetics and looking for pictures with nice subjects or something like that, but also just trying to say to the spectator, this picture has taken in this place, in this country, The spectator has to be able to say, hey, this is India, Of course, if you have the Taj Mahal in the background, you know that it's
Sure.
India, no? But if you check other pictures from my work, you see, or this is what I try just to show that you, when checking the picture, you have to say, this is this country, you know. Even if there are no iconic places or iconic buildings or something that is very easy to recognize, you know.
Yeah.
But this is something what I try to I try to do when shooting in the streets in other countries as well, you know.
Yeah. So you said that you'd spent quite a bit of time in Ethiopia as well. What
Mhm.
brought you to Ethiopia? I think that that's like such a interesting place that one might find themselves, and I'm curious, like, what took you there that allowed you to get to know some of these folks that you got to take photos of?
This is a very good question. Summarizing, it was faith, you know. Maybe it sounds strange, but when I went to Ethiopia, the first time I went it was in 2013, as I said before.
Mm-hmm.
And by that time, I was just ending my master's degree. And I had, since 2008 in India, I had in my mind the idea of going somewhere for volunteering, you know, and just to help, because what I saw in India was really, really strong, and I understood that people needs help, you know, they need help. And when I was ending my master's degree, there was a coincidence. I just met a nun, you know, and she told me, we need a computer engineer in Ethiopia to teach students and so on. And I said, okay, that's the point. I have to go, no, because I was with this idea in my mind, and this is the opportunity. So let's go. And this is how I arrived to Ethiopia in 2013. In 2015 to 2016, it was just a decision. I went with my um, girlfriend at that time. Now she's my wife, and we have a baby, as I said before. And we went together for 9 months to also for volunteering, just to teach in the University of the Salesian Sisters there in Ethiopia, and also other staff, the feeding program, and other works they do there, you know. And it was volunteering, not taking pictures. The point is, in Ethiopia, it's not like Spain, you know. You don't have cinema,
Yeah.
you don't have your friends. You're alone there. Of course, there are other volunteers, but two, three, no more than that. So you have a lot of time to, apart from working. It's different just going a couple of weeks or 3 weeks for volunteering, where you go to work all the day and until you 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 die, you know, dying. You know, the point is when you go for this long time, 9 months or 4 months, depending on 1 year or 2 years, you have time for the things, you know. And I was shooting a lot in Ethiopia, portraits, all the programs they have, the sisters have there. I was shooting even weddings, you know. I was shooting a wedding for some of the teachers of the university, the religious celebrations, everything. I mean, just
Yeah.
everything, daily life. And the product of this, all these pictures, which were between the 2 years, 2013 and 2015 to 16, was just a book. You know, I published a book that is called Ethiopia, and it was a hard job, but it was a really nice product, and it's sold out. There are no more books to sell, but that was the main motivation, just volunteering, and I wanted to help, basically.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think that's makes it even more so falls in line with what we were talking about before with telling the daily life, because I've I've seen some documentaries and I've watched other photographers kind of like behind the scenes, especially I, I notice especially in like Southeast Asia and especially in Africa, a lot of these regions of the world, there's a degree of kind of uh, like photo tourism, I guess, that kind of happens.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and I think that there's some positive aspects that can come from that. I think the economics behind it can really help local communities. But I also I enjoy a bit more authentic of approach. So the fact that you're actually living there and interacting with a lot of these folks, I would imagine on a regular basis, or at least you're familiar with them, or you're talking with them, or you share hometown with them at least. In a lot of these cases, I think it gives you a little bit more of kind of that embedded feel, to where it's not just, you're not coming in for it, a couple hours and blasting a bunch of pictures of people that don't really know what's going on. Like, you're coming in and you are a part of this this society and this community because you're there volunteering and doing other work. I think there's something that's commendable and really awesome about that. I was talking about this in one of my previous episodes with Colby Brown, but it's like, I can't imagine, like, if I was sitting on my front porch and like someone that is not from around here comes in and just like doesn't necessarily speak my language, doesn't know my customs or my cultures, and just like puts a camera in my face. Like,
with a lens like that,
Yeah, and they don't say anything first. They don't ask permission. They just walk up and they start shooting pictures of me. Like, I'd be like, "What are you doing? Like, why are you here?" And so, the idea that you're actually a part of these communities and you're working with some of these folks, I think is really awesome. And yeah, I think that's kind of another aspect of what makes your photographs kind of stand out for me.
Yeah, and also it opens a lot of doors, because I have pictures from the same people in different years. And it's very funny when you show the picture of 2 years ago, to the same person and say, hey, you're here, and they smile, and then you can interact with them and take other picture, and you have there a theme you can follow to, for example, just how the time goes along these people, because they don't live 80 years like in the Western countries. They live 55,
Sure.
So it's really interesting. It opens a lot of doors. It makes things very easy, and it lets you take these daily pictures in a different way, in fact, if in the website, we will go through it again. You mentioned previous to start this interview, you mentioned 3 galleries. I have 3 galleries in the website. And one is black and white, the other one is in color, and the other one is just, it's called Omo Valley, I think. Omo Valley is like these classic pictures from as you said, photo tourism. You go there, you take the pictures, and you just spend some hours there with a guide man, and they let you take pictures from there and so on. But what shows the real daily life are the other 2 galleries. These ones are the classic ones. If you go to Ethiopia, traveling to Ethiopia with an agency from the United States, for example, they will bring you there, and you will be able to take these pictures as well. It's not that difficult to take these pictures. The other 2 galleries are showing daily life, in a different way, because you have many opportunities. I went to this, for example, this lake. It's a lake where I was. It was a lake near to the place we were living in the mission with the Salesian sisters, and I went there thousands of times. Many times. So after choosing the pictures, then you can say, hey, this one is the good one. Because if you go 1 day, 2 hours, it doesn't matter the weather or whatever. You take the picture, and this is what you want. What you have. But if you can go again and again and again, for example, this street is the street of the mission. I have gone through this street thousands of times, not just for shooting pictures, maybe to buy some milk or bread. It's like your street in your neighborhood.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that just gives you so much more advantage over the photo tourism type scene, where it's not something where you're coming in and you're taking, again, kind of the obvious shot, like the quick tourism. I was here, this is the iconic shot of people in a tribe that are nearby, and practicing some culture. I think that you end up with getting like a lot of these types of shots where it's like you get to encompass like what daily life is. Like, you get to show a lot of these people just doing like what's just normally happening. And I think there's something that's just so cool about that. I wanted to ask you, how is it, like, do you have a particular approach? Because I think for many photographers and many street photographers, the biggest question and the biggest obstacle is approaching people to ask for their photograph, or in some cases, not asking permission for a photograph. What kind of approach do you put in place, or what kind of approach do you use in order to get some of these photographs where, you know, you are getting to actually ask permission for some of the photographs of these people?
Yeah, okay. I mean, there are differences, no? It's not the same living in the place like this ones in Ethiopia, where you have many opportunities and you meet the same people in different days, and if you go through the same streets, you meet them, you know, and you can ask them for a picture again and again, and you can build a relationship with them, you know. This is different. I think this is not answer your question, because it's like shooting in your street with your neighbors. But going to a trip of, let's say, 2 weeks, where you are traveling to India or Thailand or wherever, for me, it's much easier to approach people outside Europe. I don't know why, you know. This is probably something that is happening to other photographers. And what I do is I usually ask for permission, you know. I look, I don't know, interesting, but I usually ask for permission, just with a gesture, just showing the camera, or just smiling or something like that. And if they say no, that I don't shoot. I mean, probably it's not going to be my best shoot, you know, my best picture. So I don't mind. And sometimes sometimes I try to speak with the person before taking the picture. You know, this is intuition. You know, not always you know when to ask or when to start speaking or whatever. But sometimes, I mean, if you more you travel, more you understand how to approach people. This is the main point of this. You know, so I usually ask and just show in the camera, and other times I don't ask, and I use some tricks. You know, one of the best ones for me is just to shoot and just keep the camera in my face, you know, until the person has to pass through my side, you know. Just hey, move from the frame, because I want to take the picture, you know, but you have already taken it, because the interesting thing of the picture was just the person there, you know. So I take the picture, I wait, or I just down the camera and say, like, with a gesture, like, hey, move, go out of the frame, and then I just simulate I'm shooting again, but I already took the picture, you know.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a really good philosophy, because I mean, I think that's also probably a little bit better for them too, because they're not necessarily feeling that awkward, okay, this person is trying to take a photo. Because even I think that when I've tried to capture pictures of people on the street, as soon as they realize that the picture is about them, or that they're in the picture, they change. Something changes, and it's not the same thing anymore. So if they think that they're not involved, and they're like just going about their day and they're walking through, then you're going to get a more realistic representation of that person, in my opinion, just because they're not the subject in their mind.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what I'm trying to use, very funny, because I mean, if you are taking a picture of the Taj Mahal, for example, it's obvious you are taking the picture of the building, even if they are in the frame or not. But sometimes you are in a non-interesting at all street or place, you know, and you are taking the picture, and sometimes the people just look back like, what this guy is shooting, you know. This is not interesting at all, you know. But they just go, and that's it. But you have the picture in that place, which is non-interesting, but the person is, you know.
Is it difficult to, I mean, is it, on that note, like, is it hard to blend in? Like, I mean, in a place like Ethiopia or India, like, do you feel like it's hard to blend in if you're carrying around a camera? Or do you think that you can kind of blend in with the crowd more and be a fly on the wall?
I think you are talking about feeling insecure. This is what you mean?
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, no, in Ethiopia, it's very easy to take portraits in Ethiopia. They are very happy of, of being portrayed. And I didn't have the sense of, I didn't feel insecure. It is true that, how many white people are living there? That I was living in Zwei, which it was a town with 60,000 people. The population was 60,000,
mhm.
but we were like 5, 7 white people in the town. They know who you are,
Yeah.
and they know they know you are there working to help them. So they respect you at all. It's I mean you can feel insecure maybe if you go there for 2 hours and you are shooting in a not the proper place. But
Hmm.
if you are living there, they know you and they respect you. And in other countries, in India, for example, I didn't feel insecure. But to be honest, I don't mind. I have a camera, and for me, it's a tool, and I have to use it. And for example, now I'm shooting Leica, and I don't mind at all of having a Leica in the hands. If they want to take it, okay, for you. Because it's a tool. You have a
Sure.
camera to take pictures, not to. What is the sense of having a camera in the pocket? So
That's a
I
good
take
point.
pictures. Of course, it's a very insecure place. Then probably doesn't make sense to take pictures in that place unless you have been there for some days or weeks, spending time with the people and making them to understand that you are there to help somehow. Just with your documenting the place and just trying to publish it in a magazine or whatever. But if you are going there just for tourism, if the place is insecure, then I don't take pictures unless I think this deserves a picture.
Sure. I
But go ahead.
I think that's a really good way to approach it too. Is what's your actual motivation behind taking the photograph? Like, are you? I think in your case, where you were there helping volunteer, I think it gave you a good um, chance to get to meet some of the people before pulling out a big camera with a big lens and getting up in people's face. I've also heard from other folks that work with street photography and different cultures that the idea of just going through and walking through a town and you're just blasting photos left and right, like you're going to stand out. Like the idea is to do your best to just observe first with your eyes, allow yourself to like find what's happening, feel out like kind of the mood of what everyone else is doing, and find your opportunity there rather than kind of trying to force yourself in and just walking in. I think we're Americans and European tourists especially are just like so bad about that in general. I think
And Japanese as well.
yeah, I think that it's just tourism in general. I think kind of has like a bad taste to it, and so I think the approach of like not walking around with your camera always out, always taking pictures is is difficult, but also at the same time, I think that it can pay off because you're not going to be the person that's walking around with a camera that's drawing a bunch of attention. Instead, you're kind of blending in with what's going on as much as you can, and then finding that moment that you're looking for. To your point, like if there's nothing to take a photograph of, you might not have your camera out, but it is also hard to take a photograph if your camera is not out already. So yeah,
Yeah.
I like that approach. I like the idea that not always just going through and having your camera out always, but also being aware of when a good opportunity might be coming.
Yeah, there is a key point on this, in my opinion, because I mean, to be quick taking a picture and a good picture, and to be ready when the situation deserves it, you have to train your eye somehow, and the way to do it, because we are not traveling. I mean, when I was living in Ethiopia, I wasn't traveling, I was living there. It's a different point, but when traveling, you usually don't spend 3 4 months traveling. You go a couple of weeks, 1 week, three, but no more than that. Because unless you are just focused on photography and it's your work, if you are just working in a different topic, like me, I'm a computer engineer, then you have to train your eye. And the way to do this is just, for example, what I try to do in London and here in Spain is just I try to go out to take pictures at least once a week, and spend some hours in Sunday morning, Saturday morning, or Friday evening, or whenever it's possible, to have my hands and my eyes ready to take pictures, because you have to be familiar with your tool. You have to understand it. You have to understand how to shoot, which not only the technical issues, just your eyes, understand the frame, the composition, and everything. And if you do that, when you go out to a different country, you are able to take good pictures, even if you are in a place for only a couple of hours, because of course, if you do not train your eyes and your hands and the technique, apart from the technique, also other topics like the composition and so on, it's impossible to arrive to India and take good pictures in a street, just taking out the camera and just taking pictures. Maybe you are lucky and you have a couple of them, but it's quite hard, in my opinion.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that's a huge point too, is practicing. Being able to go out there and put in the practice to make it happen is huge, because I think a lot of folks that maybe are doing street photography or interested in it, they often think that it's just kind of like you're just walking and just snap, 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 snap. Like,
Yeah,
I think
and you have a good camera,
Yeah, it's snapshots. But as you start diving into it further, like you start understanding like the small details that really make a huge difference in the framing, and the only way to really find that is practice and continuously practicing to find different ways to photograph the same thing. Even if you're going for a walk on Sunday mornings, you might walk the same route a couple dozen times in a month. But if that's the case, or a couple dozen times a year, but like trying to find different ways of photographing scenes inside of that is also what I've found tends to be like a good field of practice, to where you're able to see something differently than you normally would, even if it's something you've seen a dozen times before.
Yeah, I agree totally with you. Yeah.
So, aside from being in Ethiopia, you have, quite a few different other projects that you've gone through that I think are just like really fascinating. But as I'm looking through a lot of your work, I mean, I see so often that like there's always such an emphasis on like the eyes, in so many of the photographs, in so many of your shots. Like there's always like such a draw to where people are looking and their expression and their eyes and what they're seeing. Even like this shot right here, his eyes and his expression are just so intense that it kind of catches you off guard a little bit. Is this like one of those ones where you were just kind of shooting and waiting for someone to walk through the scene, or was this something that was a little bit more set up?
This one, especially this one, I think it was shot from the hip,
Nice.
This was just, in fact, I would say that these pictures in Ethiopia in black and white is when I started to shoot, let's say, street photography understood like it is now a street photography, yes, people in the streets and actions and situations and so on. And because I felt it was like very embarrassing for me to take pictures directly to the people. I started shooting from the hip with a Fujifilm X100,
Mm-hmm.
because before all the portraits, like candid portraits and so on, are taken with a DSLR camera, it's a different thing with a telelens and so on. But these ones are shot from the hip. Of course, I mean, from Ethiopia, I think it's 60,000 pictures,
Wow.
which is crazy. So of course, edition, it's very important here, because I have maybe thousands of pictures like this one, and I chose this one because it's like the impressive one, with the eyes, how the man is looking to the camera and so on. So
Yeah, I love just the intense expression. And I was looking through and looking at some of your other work here and just showing like this album that's just portraits. I think you have such a strong connection with a lot of the folks because of, you know, this is just such a great example of what I mean. Just the eyes are piercing and they're just so brilliant that it just stops you kind of what you're doing in that moment. Um, is that something that you kind of try to intentionally bring into your work, is showing like just the expression of people's eyes, or is it something that you just kind of find naturally as you're shooting portraits?
Uh, I don't. I wouldn't say it's something in purpose. When I shoot portraits, I understand, or my way of understanding a portrait is just. I mean, there are two types of portraits. You know, some you can take pictures with a wide-angle lens, and you can catch the context and so on. I think this is important, but for me, when shooting a portrait, you have to focus on the eyes because the eyes can say a lot just looking at the camera. You know, you can understand if the person is happy or not, if it is bored or not, if he doesn't like the picture at all, if he is very very happy of being portrayed by a stranger. You know, so I think you can say, or not you, people can say, or persons can say a lot just looking at the camera. And when I shoot portraits, I focus on the mainly in the eyes. I have understood later that also the context could be really interesting, and I have started to use. I mean, in Ethiopia, I started because Ethiopia was like the point where I started to consolidate my way of shooting. You know, to understand that my main topics are portraits, pure portraits, street photography, and traveling. You know, and when these pictures you have shown, I'm focused on the eyes because they say a lot. You know, if, for example, the one with the blue eyes, the the girl with the blue eyes,
Yeah.
she couldn't hear. You know, she was deaf. Deaf is
Oh
the
wow.
correct word in English, right?
Yeah.
And the point is, she was in the classroom with the rest of the children, and the rest of the children, of course, they could hear. You know, and this is why she looks really bored. You know, with the hand like, hey, this is very boring because I'm not understanding anything of what is happening around me. But
Yeah.
at the same time, with the eyes, she's like asking. You know, she's asking you what is happening here. You know, she's with the eyes very very open and just like requesting something like, explain to me what is happening or what is the situation. You
Yeah.
know.
It's so cool. I really like how you brought that in and showing just a little bit of the context, showing that she's in the classroom and stuff, and understanding a little bit more of kind of behind that portrait. I think is fascinating, just because there's so much that draws you in about the photograph in general, and then understanding a little bit more of that background, I think is adds just an extra layer on top of it. When you're out shooting all these portraits and you're in, you know, different countries and you're visiting different folks, have you had like any negative experiences? Like, have you had people be upset that you take photos or anything like that, or has it pretty much been smooth sailing?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't I don't believe a photographer haven't had a bad experience. You know, I mean, but the worst experience I have had is just someone saying, no, no, I don't want pictures or something like that. But nothing apart from that, no violence or something like that.
That's good.
Just someone saying, no, no, I don't want pictures. And as I said before, I do not, I do not push the situation. You know, I usually ask first, and if they say, no, no, I don't like, then I don't take the picture. So all of these pure portraits have been, let's say, agreed before. You know,
Mm,
just asking, having a good reply, like, yeah, it's okay, and okay, and then I should.
yeah. I really like that. Is there like of your work? I mean, a lot of what you shoot is based on like where you're currently living. Do you go on like very specific like photography trips, or have you, or do you have any plans to do something like that? Or is it pretty much do you Do you work just where you happen to be?
Uh,
If that makes sense. That was kind of a weird way to phrase that. Do you travel specifically with the intention of shooting photos, or is it primarily just wherever you happen to be living or wherever you happen to be traveling to?
no, no, no. The main purpose of traveling is just knowing other countries and cultures and so on. And all of these places where I travel usually are agreed with my wife, so we choose together where to go. Of course, we both like the photography, and we think about this as well, but it's not the main. It's not the main guide or the main purpose of traveling. I mean, if I have to choose between traveling and taking pictures, I choose traveling, without camera. It's fine for me.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good approach to it because I mean, it might get overwhelming if you're just solely going on a trip for photos, just because of kind of the implications of you having to get specific shots, and I think that might be
Yeah.
where kind of more of the photo tourism starts falling in and coming into play. Do you have like any particular locations, like bucket list places that you would love to go to visit? Because
Yeah.
I mean, you're saying you want to experience the culture and the different people. Where like what in your mind would be like one of the places that you'd like to go see next?
I really would like to go to Cuba, you know.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting place, especially because, I mean, it's one of the last communist countries in the world, an active communist country, which is really strange.
yeah.
And I think it's very, very interesting. I would like to go to Peru as well. Latin America I've been in Latin America a couple of times, but I would like to go there because I have been in Southeast Asia, and I know some countries there, and also in Africa. But yeah, I could say Cuba and Peru now. God
I
knows when it's going to be possible, but
Yeah,
yeah,
we're in a little bit of a holding pattern for right now until things start opening up a little bit more. But I think Cuba would be absolutely insane. The colors of everything there are just incredible, and
yeah,
um, there's something about the cars there because they're all the cars
yeah,
are from like the 50s and um,
yeah,
40s, and they just have such incredible colors. I've had a couple photographer friends who have gone down there and shot on like slide film and just created these incredibly rich, vibrant colors that are
yeah,
just everywhere there. And there's just something about it. It just seems like such a colorful world to be a part of and to kind of understand like the culture of those folks, I think would be really interesting. Being in their unique position because of the way that the United States has an embargo basically against Cuba to
yeah,
where they're not allowing any imports or export. Like, what is that like? What is it like being in, this beautiful, beautiful place that has such little access to certain resources? And I just think that there's something interesting about the story there that could be told. So, yeah, I
yeah.
think I think Cuba is a solid choice.
Yeah,
Um,
I think thinking about the colors, I would say Cuba and India are probably the best places in the world. The colors in these two countries are crazy.
Speaking of colors, I did want to come back to India just because specifically there's a few of these shots that the colors in them are just incredible. Like the blues and the pinks that kind of come through in these photos specifically in a lot of your India shots are just awesome. Like I love kind of the balance of the dark and the blue on a lot of these. Um, when was the last time that you were in India? Was it in 2016 or have you been back since?
I was in India a couple of times. The first one in 2008, as I said, where I found my vocation, photographer vocation, let's say. In that moment, I didn't have a good camera at all. And this is why the decision of this trip was just to buy a camera. And the second time I was in 2016, and I was for 3 weeks only. And I really would like to come back I'm ready to come back. Let's see when it's possible.
Yeah, hopefully it can be sometime soon. I've really enjoyed seeing a lot of the work that you've been producing, and um, especially I'm really happy that you mentioned specifically that you study Steve McCurry, just because I definitely, that was one of the things that I first kind of thought of, and even specifically this photograph right here was one that stood out to me, and I was like, I I follow Steve McCurry on Instagram, and there's a good portion there. I saw this and I was like, that looks like Steve McCurry shot it. So I really enjoy that you study his work, and if it's of any consolation, you've done a fantastic job of creating a lot of that same sort of that same feeling that he can evoke in a lot of his photographs.
Thank you. The point is, when I was shooting these pictures, I was obsessed with this Cartier-Bresson concept. The decisive moment.
Mm-hmm.
And in my mind, I was thinking I have only one opportunity of taking the shot. But after Ethiopia, I understood that this is not how these guys, Macari or any other photographer in the world, they work. They shoot hundreds of pictures around the same subject. And this is what I did in Ethiopia the second time I was there, and in India, because I was in Ethiopia and India in the same year, and I understood that I have to shoot a lot of pictures, and this is how some of the pictures. I mean, of course, if you go to Ethiopia and you have studied Macari, you are going to somehow emulate some of his pictures, but the point is, Macari, as we were saying before, when he goes to the countries, he spent a lot of time there. He doesn't go for one day to one place and that's it.
Yeah.
So it's daily life. And as I said before, when I go to a country, what I try to do is just to shoot the daily life from the street photography perspective. Not just the iconic places and so on. And this is what Macari does. So if you just follow the same approach, for sure you will find pictures very similar to him.
Yeah, I really like that. And I think that's a good philosophy too. I think just the idea that um, that you need to spend some time and slow down a little bit. I think I'm extra guilty of it. I'll get to a scene and I'll be like, this is an incredible scene. I have to document this. I have to get this captured. And I'll take a handful of shots. And by the time that happens, I'm like, ooh, there's nothing here. I can't see it. But I think if I were able to slow down a little bit more, spend a bit more time, like I mentioned, not taking the obvious shot and actually exploring and investing that time into finding the different angles, then I just think that there's something that's really awesome about that, and it can lead to some incredible photographs. This one that I was looking at here, I love the motion that you have of this guy that's jumping in the water over here on the left. I love all of the lines that you have. It's such an awesome shot, and I really do enjoy that. And you said that you have to take like a bunch of pictures. How long are you taking in order for some of these scenes to play out? Are you kind of posted up, or are you just actually out there wandering around through the streets and kind of looking for different scenes as you go?
Yeah, for example, in these pictures you have shown, I mean, what I have to feel is like I'm tired of this place. I think there is no much more I can get from this place, So while I'm feeling that it deserves to be there and trying, then I stay there. Sometimes you get the picture in 5 minutes. Sometimes you need to spend half an hour. In this case, I remember it was raining like crazy. It was the monsoon like crazy, and I was, because it was the first rains in 11 months.
Wow.
So people were very, very happy, crazy happy. They were just enjoying the water, just jumping in the pool, playing. The children were playing, and I understood that this was a special moment. I have to spend time here. So it was raining, and I thought, hey, I don't care about the camera. These pictures are really good. So I would say 45 minutes shooting these guys.
Wow.
And I was just seeing them jumping and jumping and jumping, and sometimes they were just stopping, and 5 minutes after they started to jump again and just playing and so on. And I understood in that moment I have to wait, because sometimes it's a matter of waiting. Just you are just there, just observing and checking and just understanding the situation, and which is the motion and what is happening, and then you shoot. So sometimes it's a matter of waiting, just looking at the situation. Sometimes it's a matter of just shooting many pictures in a very short period of time. But this is something you train and practice in the travels.
Absolutely. So what's next for Yago? What you have the book that you produced that there's no more copies available. Do you have next plans? Do you have another book planned? Do you have something else that you plan on working on that you can see in the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I have a pending work. I mean, what's next for me is my baby, for sure. Most of my pictures will be focused on her, but apart from that, I have something pending, because when I was in Israel, in Holy Land, this is a strange thing, because the best works I have produced are usually related to faith, or just kind of volunteering or something like that situations. Not in these pictures, because it's something is not published in the website
Oh,
yet. But if
different
you go
ones.
to project section, there is only one picture. You can see this one.
Oh yeah.
This one. And why I'm saying this, because when I was to Israel, what I did was not just going for tourism. We were for tourism, but the context was just we were together with a brotherhood, a group of disabled people,
Mm-hmm.
and they were together with some volunteers. And the purpose of this group of people, which is called Hospitalidad Jesús de Nazaret, I could say it's like Jesus Christ hospitality or something like that in
Mm-hmm.
English. And the purpose of this group is just to bring disabled people to the holy places.
Oh wow.
It doesn't matter how difficult it is to reach the place. And they go with the volunteers, and if it is needed to take them and take them in your back, they do it. And this
Wow.
is a very good example of this. Because you can see clearly this is the Judah desert.
Yeah.
And you can see the person on the right is the disabled one. You can see, they have the stick to walk and so on, and it's very difficult to walk through this way. And the person on the left is the volunteer. And they are walking to the cross because they believe in Jesus Christ. So this is a Catholic group. So this is something that is pending for me. This was shot in 2019. But I'm in contact with the director of this hospitality, and our idea is just to keep working with them, because they are not only in the pilgrimage, they work also here in Spain with the disabled people and sick people. And my idea is to do an exhibition to get money for them, and also to publish a book, because I think this is a story that deserves to be told.
I agree. Yeah, I think that is an incredible mission. I think allowing those folks to have sort of a pilgrimage to places that are very meaningful to them, I think is a great organization. And that's an incredible photograph. It speaks so much. It tells such a story in just a single frame. I love it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Well, fantastic. Yago, we're at the top of the hour already. I feel like it flew by. It doesn't feel like it's been an hour already. I'm super excited to see what you come out with next. For those folks who maybe want to see a little bit more of your work, or possibly kind of keep in touch with this project that you're working on now, where is a good place that people can see your work on Instagram or your website? What's a good place people can find you?
Of course, in my website is jagoruizphotography.com. and also in Instagram. And the point is, Instagram now is a little bit stopped because of the baby,
Sure.
but hopefully in next weeks I will start to upload some pictures again and so on. But yeah, I would say my website and Instagram, and also in my website there is a contact section where they can find links. Linktree, it's called Linktree or something like that, and there you can find some other interviews or other galleries in different social networks and so on. Yeah.
Awesome. Perfect. And I'll also include links to your website and Instagram and everything like that in the show notes as well,
Okay.
so that people can follow along. But I think we'll wrap it up right there. I had a fantastic time getting to talk with you and learn a little bit more about your photography and your work. It was a huge pleasure.
Thank you very much, Ben. It has been a pleasure for me as well. Hopefully your channel will grow a lot, and you will get many viewers and
Well,
and subscribers.
thank you
Yeah.
so much. I appreciate that. And on that note, if you guys enjoyed the episode today, again, please be sure to subscribe. It definitely helps out. I can't wait to do this again, Iago. I appreciate you jumping on. Let's do this again. Let's keep in touch, and I'd love to see how the project's coming along and maybe later this year.
Sure, for sure. We will keep
Awesome.
in contact. Thank
Well,
you very
cool.
much.
Thank you guys so much. Iago, thank you again. If there's any other suggestions or anything like that you guys have for any future episodes, be sure to leave those in the comments. And we will be back soon. We're going to be talking with Dylan Howell. He's going to be back talking with us about SEO for photographers, how to upgrade your website and make sure that you're getting the rankings you guys deserve. So without anything else going on, I appreciate you again, Iago, and we'll see you guys next time.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Have a good one, Iago. Thanks.